Hi, if you're new to my channel, I am Jamie Glowacki, and I am the author of Oh Crap Potty Training and Oh Crap, I Have a Toddler. And I teach parents how to use curiosity and connection in their parenting instead of coercion and compliance. So today I want to talk about two of the worst pieces of parenting advice that I run into in my work. And the first one is just ignore it. Just ignore it. It'll stop if you ignore it. There are certain behaviors, particularly with the under 6 crowd, that we don't want to give a lot of attention to. However, we have to remember that all behavior is communication, and we know so much more than our parents knew. We have a lot more data, a lot more science on brain development, on psychology of kids, and so very often we're getting this kind of advice from somebody older than us that sees our kids acting a fool. Now, again, there are certain things that we would ignore. You know, a lot of times if a kid is doing excessive potty talk or maybe learns a cuss word, those are things you want to ignore, because if you give it a lot of focus and attention, the kids know they have something powerful and they will continue to do it. But when your child is having a big feeling, a meltdown, having a really hard time, you don't want to just ignore it. Yes, you want to hold space. Now, hold space is what I call being inactive with extreme presence. Yes, so you want to be present for the child, but not do too much, because as your child is escalating, whether it's a tantrum, even if they just couldn't get something they wanted, or it's a meltdown because they're overstimulated or overtired or hungry, those things can lead to like a big meltdown, right? We don't want to ignore that though, because the child is communicating a need, even though it looks like it could be manipulation and it looks like it could be, just ridiculous behavior. You know, I was recently just hanging out with a 2-year-old, and I forget sometimes how crazy 2-year-olds are, right? They're like up, they're down, they're up, they're down, like literally smiling one second, falling on the floor the next second. But if we just keep ignoring them, all we teach them is that their feelings don't matter. And they'll learn to keep them inside, but is that what we want? Because I don't know about you, but I've paid for years of therapy because I learned how to do that, right? So we can be inactive, but still have extreme presence. Now, there are certain times when your child might be in the middle of a meltdown, and if you'll look them directly in the eye, you will escalate things. If you attempt to fix things, like, you can't have candy right now. It's right before dinner and we don't eat candy, those kind of logical things, it's going to make the children escalate. And sometimes a child will say, hold me, I need you. And then you make a move for them and they're like, no, get away from me. That's when you want like a soft focus. You don't want to necessarily be like staring them down, right? Or trying to say things, but that's where you would have that inactivity with extreme presence. So you can be very present with your child, even though you're not fixing anything, but you're also not invalidating their emotions. Now, this can be really challenging, and I talk a lot about this throughout my podcast, Oh Crap Parenting. A mainstay of my work is teaching parents how to be regulated themselves, because this behavior can be very triggering for us. So then we go into fix it mode or ignore it mode, or we become overwhelmed and we add chaos to them instead of calm. We really want to lend our children our calm and not our chaos. I also think that there are certain behaviors that we don't want to give a lot of energy to, but we also don't want to just ignore it. Ignoring kids is really detrimental. So there's a really popular study where they put an infant and a mom, and the mom was smiling and, cooing, and the baby was happy and laughing and giggling. Then they had the mom be angry or, scowling and rough. And it took the child a minute. The child ended up kind of getting in distress, a little whining, a little crying, but they weren't full-blown distress. But then they had the mom ignore the child, and the child went into high distress very quickly. So kids often will exhibit it negative behavior because they'll have a negative reaction, and that is better than no reaction at all, right? And so this can get you into a negative feedback loop, whereas the child is just interacting, just getting attention from you by acting in a negative manner, or something that you will respond to in a negative manner because they'd rather have that attention than no attention. So ignoring big feelings is never helpful. And again, it's usually coming from somebody older who thinks that that was good parenting. And again, there's context in here, so this isn't going to apply to every situation. The next worst piece of advice I hear is they'll grow out of it. And so it's kind of along the same lines as ignore it. Like, don't worry about it. They'll grow out of that. One of the reasons I wrote, oh crap, I have a toddler, is because throughout my work, I started noticing this real discrepancy. So 2-year-old behavior is very volatile, right? Like, as I said, they're up, they're down, it's a roller coaster. They don't have a lot of language. Things like hitting, biting, we will do the very gentle thing. No, we don't do that, right? We will attempt to fix it that way. We know now we're not giving harsh punishments or anything like that. If a child is hitting, I don't believe in corporal punishment. It's not part of my work. And I don't see, like, if you're literally actively trying to teach a child not to hit and you do that by hitting them, that makes no sense to me. So I might not be the person for you if that's your plan. But what I do see a lot is, they'll just grow out of it. And I see this in a couple of realms. Again, the age between 2 and 3, what a 2-year-old will do that seems like, they'll just grow out of it. By the time they get to 3, if they haven't just grown out of it, that behavior must be addressed. And again, behavior is communication. So we're always looking for the root cause, but sometimes we need a Band-Aid with some external consequences or something like that. Because at 3, things start getting ingrained. And then if that behavior continues, you have a volatile, sort of emotionally all over the map child as they go into 4 and 5. And now we're getting into kindergarten, and things might get sticky with school and other social situations with kids. I also see this is said with picky eating. Picky eating is on the rise. I'm seeing crazy things in my work, and I really attribute this to hyper-palatable packaged food. So what used to be, like in my day, and I always say I'm 55 for reference, picky eating happens. I think there's always a stage that toddlers go through where they start getting a little more selective. They want the same thing, and it's usually very like carb heavy, like pasta, mac and cheese, pizza, those kinds of foods. And I'm talking about neurotypical kids. I do understand that with neurodivergence, there are sensory issues and there are bigger things at hand. I'm talking with your neurotypical average kid. I don't see a lot of kids growing out of that. It just gets worse because I do really believe that there's a bit of a food addiction. Those foods can really light up dopamine in the brain. And so it can be one of those things that just escalates. And I'm seeing kids who are down to only eating things like brownies or Pop-Tarts. They're never down to eating like chicken and broccoli, right? It's always these super hyper palatable foods. So, get help for picky eating. I work with picky eating. There are tons of people doing it right now, but it's not one of those things that you can guarantee they're just going to grow out of, because I'm seeing kids more and more and more. The same thing with, they'll grow out of it. This comes with potty training, and I am a potty training expert, and I see, don't worry about it. They won't go to college in diapers. While this is true, I do regularly see kids being now delayed to go into kindergarten because they're not ready. These kids are 6 years old. I see kids getting kicked out of kindergarten for not being properly trained. So again, there are things that we have to assist with, and that the kids are not just going to grow out of it. So I think those are 2 of the standard worst parenting advice things that come out of, usually, again, older people's mouths. So I would say, don't just assume your kid's going to grow out of it, and please don't ignore your child, especially when they're having a hard time. I don't think that's the way we want to parent anymore. All right, if you found that helpful, I do have some paid and free resources. I'd love to help you on your parenting journey, on your potty training journey. And as always, if you have a question, comment, and subscribe, and share with anybody if you found this helpful. All right, you guys, have a great day.